the 26th of June, 2026. Titan Quest turns 20 years old. 20 years. An entire generation of players has grown up since its release. Countless action RPGs have come and gone, and yet Titan Quest remains strangely unique. Not because it was the best-selling game of its era, not because it had the biggest budget, and not because nostalgia blinds us to its imperfections. No, Titan Quest is still remembered because it dared to be different. When people talk about the greatest action RPGs ever made, names like Diablo, Path of Exile, and Grim Dawn inevitably enter the conversation. But Titan Quest always occupies a very special place. Because unlike most games in the genre, it wasn't built around a fantasy universe created by an author. Instead, it was built upon humanity's own stories. Its world already existed. Its monsters already existed. Its legends had already survived for thousands of years. And perhaps that's why, 20 years later, Titan Quest still feels unlike anything else. Today, we are going to celebrate this incredible game by exploring 3 reasons why it continues to stand the test of time. Its identity, its innovations, and the freedom it gave its players. This is Titan Quest, 20 years later. If there is one thing that truly separates Titan Quest from every other action RPG, it is its world. Most games ask a simple question: what kind of fantasy universe can we invent? Titan Quest asked a completely different one. What if humanity's own myths became a game? That single idea gave Titan Quest an identity that, even after 20 years, remains unique. Because unlike most fantasy games, Titan Quest is not built upon the imagination of a single author. Its world already existed for thousands of years. Its monsters, its gods, its legends, and even many of its locations are rooted in real civilizations that shaped human history. As you travel through the game, you are not exploring an invented continent. You are retracing the footsteps of humanity itself. The journey begins in ancient Greece. You pass through Megara, Corinth, and Athens. You fight alongside Spartans. You explore Mycenaean ruins. And eventually, you descend beneath the palace of Knossos to confront one of mythology's most famous creatures, the Minotaur, not a random monster created for a video game, but a legend that has survived thousands of years through literature, sculptures, pottery, and ancient art. And this philosophy extends throughout the entire game. You battle the Lernaean Hydra. You encounter Talos. You face Medusa and her sisters. And eventually, you stand before Typhon himself, one of the most terrifying beings in Greek mythology. Then the journey continues south into Egypt. You cross Alexandria, the Fayum Oasis, and Babylon while exploring temples, tombs, and monuments inspired by real history. The enemies change with the culture itself. Scarab guardians, ancient serpent deities, undead pharaohs, creatures born from Egyptian beliefs. Then Titan Quest does something extraordinary. Instead of replacing mythology with fantasy inventions, it expands its journey across humanity itself. The Silk Road and Imperial China introduce Yaoguai demons, dragons, and mystical palaces inspired by Eastern folklore. Ragnarök transports us to Northern Europe, where Loki, Surtur, and Nidhogger emerge from Norse mythology. Atlantis invites us to pursue one of humanity's greatest mysteries, and Immortal Throne sends us directly into Hades itself. What makes all of this extraordinary is that these creatures were never invented by Titan Quest. Long before video games existed, they were already there, painted on amphorae, carved into statues, immortalized in frescoes, written in books, preserved through stories passed down from generation to generation. Titan Quest simply gave them life. And perhaps that is why its world feels so different. Because while other fantasy games ask players to learn new histories, Titan Quest reconnects us with stories humanity has already been telling for thousands of years. In a way, the game is not just an action RPG, It is an interactive museum of world mythology. Titan Quest didn't create myths, it resurrected them, but having a unique world was only part of the story. Titan Quest also dared to challenge many of the conventions of its genre. When it released in 2006, action RPGs already followed a familiar formula. Choose a class, kill monsters, collect random loot, repeat. Titan Quest wanted something different. Its first major innovation was its dual mastery system. Instead of locking players into a single class from the beginning, the game allowed them to combine any two masteries together: warfare and spirit, earth and defense, hunting and roam. Every combination created an entirely new identity. Players were no longer selecting a role, they were creating one. Today, build diversity is considered a standard feature. But 20 years ago, Titan Quest was already encouraging creativity and experimentation. Its second innovation was something players could immediately feel. Wait, enemies didn't simply collapse when they died. Powerful attacks and devastating spells sent entire groups of monsters flying through the air thanks to a ragdoll physics system. Combat suddenly felt physical. Every strike had impact. Every powerful attack carried momentum. It was a small detail that dramatically increased the satisfaction of combat. But perhaps Titan Quest's most underrated innovation was its philosophy surrounding loot. Most action RPGs relied on abstraction. A bandit could somehow drop equipment he was never wearing. A creature could magically reward you with unrelated armor. Titan Quest replaced abstraction with logic. What you saw was what you got. If an enemy was carrying a spear, they could drop that spear. If they wore a helmet, they could drop that helmet. And if you spotted an enemy holding an exceptionally rare weapon, you instantly understood two things. The fight would be difficult, and the reward would be worth it. The game also introduced monster infrequence, special items that only dropped from specific enemies. Players were no longer farming random treasure tables. They were hunting specific creatures for specific rewards. Even more impressive was the item generation system itself. Sometimes, an ordinary item with exceptional affixes could outperform a legendary piece of equipment. It created a level of decision-making that many modern action RPGs still struggle to replicate. Looking back 20 years later, it's easy to forget how unusual these ideas were. Titan Quest didn't follow the genre, it challenged it. If innovation defined Titan Quest and mythology gave it a unique identity, there is one final reason why the game is still alive today: freedom. In an era where many modern games are tightly controlled experiences, Titan Quest embraced something that has gradually disappeared from the genre. It trusted its community. From the very beginning, players were given official development tools that allowed them to modify almost every aspect of the game. And these were not simplified tools designed for minor adjustments. They were the very foundations used to build the game itself. Titan Quest's modding ecosystem revolved around its custom quest system, allowing players to experiment without permanently affecting their main campaign characters. Over the years, the community created countless projects. Some mods increased loot drops and altered progression systems. Others built entirely new worlds. Some creators redesigned the mastery system itself, introducing completely new abilities and character archetypes. Others transformed familiar encounters into gigantic battles filled with hundreds of monsters. But perhaps the most impressive aspect wasn't the mods themselves. It was the philosophy behind them. Tools that allowed players to create, experiment, and expand the game beyond its original limits. That philosophy feels increasingly rare today. Many modern action RPGs are built as closed ecosystems, where players simply consume content. Titan Quest chose a different path. It empowered its community to become creators. And perhaps that is one of the reasons the game has survived for 20 years. Because Titan Quest was never simply the game released in 2006. It became a collaborative project between developers and players. Every custom map, Every mastery overhaul, every new adventure. Another chapter in a story that refused to end. 20 years later, Titan Quest remains unique because it was built upon three principles that many modern games have forgotten: identity, innovation, freedom. It resurrected humanity's myths. It challenged the conventions of its genre, and it trusted its players enough to let them create their own adventures. Titan Quest was never simply another action RPG. It was a journey through humanity's oldest stories. And perhaps that is why, 20 years later, we are still here, still talking about it, still exploring its world, still fighting its monsters, still creating new adventures. 20 years ago, Titan Quest didn't create a fantasy world. It invited us into humanity's oldest stories. And that journey is still alive today. Happy 20th anniversary, Titan Quest.